George Bruno with the 21 Report. We are at the 21 Summit in Orlando, Florida. The year is 2020, and I'm having a conversation with Mr. Jack Donovan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Wow, 4 days, an event that we never pulled off before. Well, let me ask you this. Did we pull it off? We had 3 stages.
As far as I can tell, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it.
One of your superpowers is of observation.
Mm-hmm.
You observe.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
What did you observe for the past 4 days?
Well, I think it was just a really productive group. Everything, there was no drama, which is nice. I didn't notice any drama, really. And, you have a lot of productive people getting together and sharing ideas. I enjoyed it specifically just because I wasn't speaking this year. And so I just got to have fun and attend the conference and meet with a lot of my really colleagues in my industry at this point. It's really a business conference for me. Yeah. And so I get to talk to a lot of my peers, see Elliot Hulse again, meet John Sonmez, who I've been on his podcast before, and so forth. And so it's a really good opportunity for me to meet all these guys and exchange ideas. And it's funny, and several people have talked about it throughout the conferences that my book was out pretty early, 2012 now, and so I have guys speaking who were influenced by me, and then I get to watch their speeches and then be influenced by them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you really took that ball and ran with it. Really, really inspirational stuff.
It's like the student teaching the professor.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good because then it feeds back into what I'm doing. I mean, Tanner did some, in his talk, he talked a little bit about my book that I'm working on now because no one else has seen it except for him. Mm-hmm. And he pulled out some ideas and riffed off of things that I've just started talking about. I'm like, I got to go back in the book and add that in. Yeah. Things that, talked about different archetypes and stuff. And he, added 3. So again, we're just all feeding off of each other, and that's what really movements and intellectual movements and all these things do. You get all these minds together, and then they feed off of each other and riff off of each other. So it was really productive, I think.
Well, because you're part of the team, you're like a fixture with the team. It would be weird to not have you here. Mm-hmm. And like some of the guys that were stuck due to restrictions internationally that are not here, it was like weird not having them around. It was just kind of like something was missing, with some of the guys that weren't here, but I'm glad you were here. But how interesting to be here and not be on stage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. I didn't have to stress about anything. I didn't have to hide in my room until the end, until I went on stage. So I didn't have to worry about anything. I just got to walk around and really be more social than I was before, because that was really the key part of it for me. To see some of the speeches, sure, but also to interact with some of the attendees. I get more time to talk to them. I don't have to worry about all the technical things of am I going to say the thing that I meant to say, that kind of thing. So really great time to build relationships and connections and so forth. So
yeah, it was interesting seeing you in the audience, in the different rooms, and then I would turn a corner and then you'd be talking to 2 or 3 guys, and you had like little mini sessions with people throughout the past few days. Were there topics that were more frequent than others? When people pull you aside, what do they talk about? What do they want to talk about?
Oh man, I don't know. I end up talking to a lot of people about ritual and about myth. And because that's kind of where I found my specialty. As this, industry, kind of men's writing and so forth has grown, I've found that my niche is changing. At first, I had to be the almost tactical looking guy of like, you need to pull it together. These are the tactical virtues. This is what men need to do. And now as we bring in guys who are like, special operations and so forth, who have done all those things and have more expertise in those areas, now I can kind of relax into the stuff that I enjoy doing more. It's like you be the guy that they need you to be at the time. And now I can relax into talking more about myth and about art and about creativity. And so I don't know what they grab me to talk about, but that's what we end up talking about because that's what I like to talk about. So we talk a lot about creativity. I mean, I was up until whatever 3:00 last night, and we're talking about initiation rituals.
Yeah.
And how to do that, and the function of it, and how something can be changed in the future, and so forth, and I end up talking a lot like that.
So you went from being a professor, so to speak, to being like the department chairperson.
I guess
so
it's a demotion. Well, no, it's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, it's a promotion. Yeah, good. Yeah.
I like to look at you as you're kind of like the gateway drug to the manosphere with a lot of guys. There's a lot of men who find the men's community through you, and you are responsible. And usually, like the first time, there's like this weird, what do they call it in behavioral psych? I don't know if it's called imprinting or something, where, like where geese, if a man is present when geese are hatched, they view it, and they start following the man around like it's their. And there's men that were hatched and evolved in the manosphere. They came to themselves under your guidance. You're the first person they encountered. And you were their first exposure to them finding themselves or recreating themselves. What a responsibility that is.
It is. It's really weird. As time goes on, you meet these guys and you've had that influence on them over the years. And it's a big responsibility. As I've said to a few people, I'm working on a new book now. And working on a book when I'm a truck driver in 2012, you can say whatever you want, And Isaac and I actually laughed about it because he had some experiences early on where he told people to do things as a joke and then they did them.
Yeah.
And I have that influence now that, like, if I say you should go do that, then guys might go do it, and so I have to make sure I mean it, and make sure it's the best thing for me to tell people.
Sure.
And maybe a lot of people, not just like a few guys. When I wrote The Way of Men, I didn't think hundreds of thousands of people would read it. Funny story. I actually said the imprinting and the first exposure. I got an email while I was at the conference. A guy saying, "Hey, thank you for your book." I get these a lot, and thank you for your book. It was given to me in jail. Like some guy, like a cop gave it to him in jail because he was, a military vet, and so the cop didn't think he would be a problem. He was just in there for a few days or whatever, and so the cop handed him off a copy of The Way of Men. I'm like, "You should read this." And so that was his first exposure to me, was a cop giving him my book in jail. And there's all kinds of weird stories like that, but that struck me as a particularly, like, somewhere there's a cop giving out copies of The Way of Men to prisoners in jail, as they get out, So that's pretty powerful. So yeah, you want to make sure you're giving them the right message.
I could just see this, like 5 years from now, we have a speaker on stage and he's talking to this group of men and he says, 5 years ago, I was in jail and a cop handed me a copy of The Way of Men by that man right there, Mr. Jack. And it's going to blow your mind. You're reaching people that you don't even know.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And all over the world.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And it's exciting, and it's an honor. I mean, that's what honor is, right? I mean, it's a great honor. And as we said, a great responsibility as well.
Yeah. All right. So you're a prolific author. What is your favorite book, your personal favorite that you've written?
My personal favorite would have to be The Way of Men, just because I think it covers it's timeless. I don't think it's any less relevant, and possibly a little even more relevant today than it was when it came out.
In 2012?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I agree with it, all of it. Still, I was right as far as I'm concerned. And that's a good feeling, because I've written things before where it's like, I wouldn't have said it that way, or maybe, and we need to recontextualize that,
Sure.
now, and because you evolve as a person. But I think what I did was very fundamental to men. And so it's still true, and it's still relevant. And, I have felt a little bit like Nostradamus a little bit. The cover of The Way of Men, I only noticed it because I was taking a picture of it to upload into a t-shirt. And they have masks across their faces, and they have good neck gaiters across. I mean, that's something I drew all that time ago, and I'm like, that looks very right now.
It looks very 2020.
Yeah, it looks very 2020. These gangs of men with masks over their faces. That's
how interesting.
Yeah, that struck me. I was like, that's weird, But
wow.
So yeah, it feels very relevant still.
Wow. What is the profile of your typical follower? Is there a typical follower of Jack Donovan?
No. I do have, I always say, when I talk about this, I always say I have two groups of guys. And there are many in between, obviously, but I feel like I have guys who have come from maybe a country background, or they've been through the military, or they've had a harder existence, and they read The Way of Men and they're like, that's correct. And it's just matter of fact, they're like, I'm glad somebody put that into words better than I can. That's correct. And then they'll give it to their friends like, see, this guy's got it. We understand this, right? And that's humbling, and I'm glad to see that, because I've Green Berets and all these things that are like, I read this, I'm like, yes, you got it. And then I have another group, which I always count myself more in personally, is nerds who realize that they need to get punched in the face. Mm-hmm. So it guys who maybe haven't had any of that harder experience and haven't realized at some point, like, hey, I'm missing something in my life that I need to add in. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a component of like physical strength or physical courage, or some kind of martial art or violence or something that they haven't had experience with it, and they feel like something's missing, and so they read The Way of Men and they're like, okay, well, this is where I need to go. And so like I said, I count myself more in that group, because a lot of things I've written about things like, I guess I need to go take a martial art, or I guess I need to go do this because I'm missing that. And through doing those things, then you transform yourself and you kind of become the thing that you've idealized, mm-hmm. Which I think is really important. So
you do have an interesting following. I noticed mm-hmm. there's a lot of guys who emulate you, your appearance and such. Mm-hmm. And then you have the guys, with the thick, the thick lens glasses and the black rims, mm-hmm. who are sitting in a cubicle all day long, mm-hmm. programming and coding and stuff like that, mm-hmm. who are huge Jack Donovan fans. Mm-hmm. Guys that you would never expect. Like nerds, maybe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and I hopefully they're, that's always the problem when you write things and you give a big speech and you give a rallying cry and so forth. The problem is always, are these guys gonna put this into action? And are they gonna let it change them, or are they just like, yeah? And there is a cathartic thing. Mm-hmm. And I did a video against memes the other day, because I was so tired of seeing dudes. Not like memes are really bad, but I got so tired of seeing dudes repost these memes of kind of the masculine man. Like, this is what the masculine man would say to this lesser person, and then I follow their accounts and I'm like, you're not that guy. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. You're just posting memes to make yourself feel good. Yeah. Or you're just saying, this is what we believe and therefore I'm better. And that doesn't cut it. That doesn't impress me at all. I think that when you see these guys actually put it into action, and I've had, because it's been many years now, I have people who've been following my work since 2007. And so I've seen guys that are really have become guys I want to hang out with. Like guys who are better than me at something. They're like, like I said, they took the ball and ran with it. And that's really inspiring. So
interesting. All right, I'm going to pivot for a second. I'm going to turn back on something you said. You were talking about some of the things that you were interested in, things you teach on, things that you have discussions about. You were talking about ritual, and you mentioned art. Mm-hmm. Jack Donovan talks about art.
Yeah. I went to art school. That's my background. That's what I care about. Yeah. I'm a visual person, and and that's obviously I'm talking about concepts with The Way of Men, but I love to see that concept expressed. And one of the things we actually even talked about in the Red Man group, and I'm talking about the new book, is that men think art is seen as not masculine, and there's a reason for that, and that hasn't always been so.
Right.
When we think of all the ancient Greek statues and really the greatest art in history really elevates masculine values.
Yes.
Whether you're looking at the Sistine Chapel and these like jacked dudes like who were the gods and so forth, whether you're looking at ancient Greek sculptures, you're looking at paintings up into a certain heroic statues in the center of town, art raised men up, and I think we had a position in a society where things changed. It became very individualistic, and the artists, it became a little bit of a navel-gazing thing where like art is about however you feel and your weakness and your vulnerability, and let's use art to challenge all the structure of society. And so art became very anti-masculine. And men, they don't know that they're responding to that, but they are. Mm-hmm. They're seeing something that's like, well, you got famous for just doing scribbling on a thing, and it's totally disordered. Men care about order. And so they see that and they're like, I don't like art. Art's stupid.
Yeah.
Or some feminine poetry reading, or some like thing. It's all about my feelings and so forth. And feelings are good, but men just sometimes have different feelings. Or anger is a feeling. Seeking glory is a feeling. Like all these things that are good. And if you look back at over the history of poetry and things like that, I mean, you have these great poets that are very inspiring, and all the way back to like Homer. The greatest stories that men are ever told are in poetry. Yeah. And so that's phenomenally important to our history as men. And I think that if you're going to create a new culture that's inspiring to men, you actually have to bring art into it. Yeah. And like, where do you get to the point where you have songs that reflect these values, and paintings that reflect these values, and something that's new, and not just trying to go back to the past, but something that's new. Like from the cover of my new book, I hired a 3D artist, so to digitally render my idea. Yeah. And there's guys who are doing that right now with incredible skill. Mm-hmm. So I just think there's a lot of opportunity for growth, and that's really exciting to me. Like, let's create culture. Yeah.
You've had over a year now to reflect on the Poland trip. We were in Poland last year. Well over a year now. Talk about Poland. Now that you had a chance to kind of like let those thoughts settle in.
Oh, I mean, it was a fun trip. I always like to go to Europe. I mean, I was supposed to go to Europe this year. I was supposed to go to Switzerland and go to where Nietzsche wrote Zarathustra and Sils Maria. But we didn't get to do
Piero
that.
Lives in Switzerland, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yes. I was gonna go meet up with Piero hopefully, and so it just all got derailed. But I ended up going to Zion National Park in America. There's so many beautiful places in America people forget. A lot of people, Europeans don't even know. Yeah. But Poland, as far as going there for the trip, I mean, I definitely got a kick out of it. It was not a place I would have gone to otherwise, just linguistically and like the things that I'm interested in. I traveled to those places. Mm-hmm. Like I'd love to go to Greece right now because I've been reading a lot of myths, and so I'd love to go see some of this stuff. But it was a great place. Obviously, the people were really positive, and it was great to see that different culture, and obviously a little bit more of a traditional culture. And it was awesome to see a country that had no patience for communism because they've just been through it. So that was cool, and I love the kind of Blade Runner feel of Poland. I mean, it's like all these like concrete buildings, whatever, and then the ads are on top because capitalism swept in, and so there's this contrast there that I think is really interesting.
There was still a lot of black leather jackets with many zippers and a lot of like Billy Idol looking, and I noticed some people said, "Oh, they're kind of still stuck in the '80s." I don't look at it that way. I saw a lot of Doc Marten boots there, and it was interesting. It was interesting. They're not really interested in a lot of trendy Western kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, they obviously get a different feed than we do. And because they're different culture, and they're Eastern Europe is a little bit different than Western Europe, and they're on the edge of that. Yeah. So there are different cultural elements at play, and I think these trends go all around the world, but they may not.
they have a little bit more of a root, and that is the thing with Europe that we miss a little bit in America. You know, you can anywhere in Europe, you go to this thing, and this thing has 2,000 years of culture attached to it.
Yeah.
You know, we only have a few hundred years, so especially when you get into the West Coast, where I am most of the time. You know, even on the East Coast, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, you go to buildings that like, oh well, this is where the revolutionaries stayed, and that's just, you know, down the street from, you know, the 7-Eleven that I normally go to, and you know, it's all here. And whereas they are inundated by all this history all the time, they're surrounded by it, and so they have that different, and that gives, I think, maybe that's counters a certain amount of trendiness when you're surrounded by stuff that's very old. Yeah, you know. So, but it's always, I mean, we have to live in the now, and I think that that's something I'm always trying to get across to guys, as I was talking about culture and so forth, is that people always want to like live in the past and go back to the past and reinvent the past, you know, live the past in some way. And whatever we do, it has to be right now, because that's what they did. Yeah. The people in the past, they were living right now. Yeah. I mean, they were present.
It's always interesting going to a country that was governed by kings not that long ago. Right. I mean, Poland was a monarchy not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very fascinating. Great conversation with Mr. Jack Donovan. Will you go to Poland if we go again next year? Maybe. Everything is so far in the future right now, the way the world's working. But yeah, I'm open to things. Yeah, to see I have to see when my book's done. Am I ready to present things? Then maybe so. Yeah. One last question before we wrap up. Right. Who did you meet that was interesting to you this year that you never met before at this conference? I would say John Zomez. Excellent. Yeah, because you met virtually before, but you never met in person, face to face. Right. And so that's always a different thing. Yeah. You know, and so it was cool to interact with him, and I even had a funny interaction with him like last night at like 4 a.m, where, you know, like he rolled in with a bunch of guys, and we've all been partying, and so like there's a realness to it rather than, and so it was good. We bonded over something. It was cool. He's everything that I thought he was. He really is a gentleman, and what you see online is him. Yeah. That gentle nature, but that, you know, that gentle nature could change quickly if it needed to change. Yeah. Yeah. And he's in a role, as I am a lot of times, where you are kind of I wouldn't say authority figure, but a little bit more of a leader. Yeah. And you know, that was one of the things last night. A lot of the younger guys and volunteers, they were all like spun up about something and whatever. And, you know, it's me and John Summers being like, what really happened here? Yeah. All right, we let's calm down and let's figure out what actually happened. And, you know, like, give me the fact. Give me the facts, not the emotions. Exactly. Yeah. Like, calm down, kids. All right, this isn't that big of a deal. You know. So it was, you know, it was just him and me doing that. So it was kind of funny because we were both in that role. The two guys that have what I would call the most physically impressive / intimidating / impactful image are the two most approachable guys at the conference. And that is very interesting. You are one of the most approachable and most easy to talk to people in the whole conference. Thank you. That's great. A conversation. We are going to end it this time. A conversation with Jack Donovan. Thank you, Jack. All right, thank you.